Hello mates! Welcome to Budget Gaming. I'm your host Finley. We got some awesome shadow drops from the most recent Nintendo Indie World Showcase. 4 indie games in fact. Blueprints, Rotwood, Ooh, which I recently reviewed and will have linked in the description and at the end of this video, and the final game was Minishoot Adventures, which is the game I'm reviewing today. Minishoot Adventures released on PC recently, which I think was last year actually, to great fanfare from gamers and critics alike. If you're unfamiliar with Minishoot Adventures, it's a game that blends quite a few genres into one, such as action-adventure. Think something along the lines of classic top-down Zelda, particularly the Minish Cap from the Game Boy Advance, along with bullet hell shooting mechanics. Think of something along the line of Geometry Wars or the boss fights from Ball Pit. And to top it all off, it has a rather deep progression system, upgrade system, and unlockables, which gives this game a strong RPG feel. The gameplay is very much a classic Zelda clone, except instead of playing as a human with a sword and shield, you're a cute little spaceship that shoots with twin-stick-style gameplay. Instead of your enemies being fairy tale-looking creatures, they are mostly robotic creatures and spaceships. You'll be traversing a rather large world map that is cut into various sections, and you're only able to enter these areas if you have a certain upgrade or power-up attached. Examples of this would be needing a more powerful gun to shoot down boulders in order to proceed to the next location, or having your dash move so you can jump over large gaps. In order to unlock these upgrades, you need to clear dungeons, and this is where the game really starts to feel like Zelda. Here, you'll solve puzzles, defeat enemies, have races, and fight mini-boss fights, or major boss fights, depending on the dungeon. A big portion of the game is spent exploring these dungeons. Luckily, they're quite fun, entertaining, and usually feel fresh as the game does a good job on making the dungeons feel different from each other. That's not to say that every single dungeon is drastically unique. Far from it, actually. But the puzzles, enemies, and layouts all feel different enough to where you won't get bored. As you're traversing the world and dungeons, you'll come across friendly spaceships who are stuck in a purple crystal. You'll smash these crystals to free the spaceships, who you'll later meet at your home base. Once you return to home base, after saving a spaceship, the spaceship will offer goods as a favor in return. You will unlock many of these little guys, but some examples of what they do for you is selling you helpful items, reading your map, which essentially shows every dungeon in a general location, while also marking off every dungeon you've already completed, which is insanely helpful once it finally unlocks. Another thing you'll be doing quite often in this game is collecting. Well, collectibles. But nearly all of the collectibles are useful items you need to progress farther into the game. Some examples are map fragments, which unlock pieces of the map, and heart pieces to gain more health. As you probably already guessed, it takes 4 heart pieces to gain another full heart. You also have to collect these red discs, which are used to upgrade your gun, and to buy various items that'll help you along your journey. There are also fireflies to collect that you can trade in to get really helpful perks, such as being fully healed every time you collect 4 heart pieces. I know some people are a bit worried about playing a bullet hell game, as they're usually known to be quite difficult. I can assure you that this game isn't extremely difficult. In fact, it has 3 difficulty settings, so you are guaranteed to find a difficulty level that suits your gameplay style. I played on normal, or medium. I can't remember what they called it. Anyway, I've died a decent amount of times, but it never felt like it was too hard or cheap. The game has an upgrade system that is very much like a RPG, so you can farm XP and get a bunch of upgrades if you're stuck in a difficult spot, such as a boss fight. Extra damage, fire range, bullet speed, and fire range being the most important upgrades if you want to take enemies out quickly. Although you do need to upgrade your speed early in the game for a particular mini-boss, luckily, if you're unhappy with your build, you can downgrade an ability so you can upgrade something else. To give a bit more detail on things I mentioned earlier, I mentioned the extensive upgrades. Now, when I say extensive, I just mean it's much deeper than I was expecting. I was expecting weapon upgrades, health upgrades, and maybe armor upgrades. But there is quite a lot more to Minishoot Adventures. There are over 10 upgrades that have multiple levels of upgrades, and over 15 passive unlockables, which are upgrades you usually don't need to do anything to use. They're just always there. Some examples would be the Idol of Time, which makes your time-slowing ability last longer. The Compass, which is the item that checks off dungeons you complete. or the crystal bullet, which has a chance of stunning enemies with every shot. Some other things I want to talk about is the art style and music. The art style is absolutely gorgeous. With such a heavy emphasis on spaceships, you would think the game would lean much harder into sci-fi territory, but it still looks and feels much more like a fantasy game, like any of the classic Zelda games. I'm honestly impressed with the way the team combined a fantasy world with sci-fi characters and made it work so well. The environments are absolutely gorgeous as well. In Minishoot, you're going to find a wide range of terrain to explore, such as deep forest, lost ruins, and my favorite, a beautiful section that is always raining. Of course, there are other areas to explore, but I don't want to spoil everything for you. While I spent most of my time in handheld mode, I have to say that this game looks particularly fantastic in docked mode. My God, does it look vibrant on the TV screen. The music is quite adorable in this game as well. It's cute, catchy, and really adds to the vibes in a positive way. I spent most of my time with Minishoot Adventure on the Switch 2, but I did play it a little bit on the Switch 1. I had one crash on the Switch 2, but that was the only major issue I had. Besides that, I will say the loading can feel way too long in the dungeons, especially if you're dying a lot, since it sends you back to the beginning of the dungeon. Once revived, all the rooms are cleared if you already cleared them, but that means you're flying through all the rooms, entering a loading screen every few seconds, which quickly becomes annoying. So overall, what did I think of Minishoot Adventures? I think it's absolutely fantastic. As someone who isn't a huge fan of the dungeons in Zelda, and actually never finished a Zelda game because of it, I'm not exactly sure why I'm so captivated by the gameplay loop in Minishoot Adventure, but for some reason, I can't stop playing it. It's one of those games I can't stop thinking about when I'm not playing it, and jump right into playing the minute I get home from work. But there are a few things I do not like about the game. The main thing is the respawn location. Whenever you die outside of a dungeon, they send you back to the base, which can be pretty far from the area you're working on. I wish there was a respawn section at the beginning of each world section instead of doing all the backtracking every time you die. I know I mentioned this earlier, but the loading sucks pretty bad in the dungeons. It doesn't seem bad at first, but it gets really annoying after a while. And lastly, while this isn't exactly the game's fault, but playing twin-stick shooters feels pretty unpleasant on the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. I don't really understand why, but games like this feel so much better on the Series X or PS5 controller. I might have to get a Pro controller and see if it improves the feel of twin-stick shooters on the Switch 2. Even with those complaints, the game is fantastic and is my favorite indie game of the year. Well, my favorite that I've played so far. Like seriously, it's that good. So good, in fact, that if they make a physical version, I'd pick it up on the PS5. That's how much I like it, I'd be willing to buy it a second time. At $15.99, this game is well worth the asking price, as it will take over 10 hours to complete. How Long to Beat says it takes 10 hours to beat, but I feel like it's closer to 12 to 15 hours, especially if you decide to do every dungeon. Alright now, let me know down in the comments if you plan on picking up Minishoot Adventures, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe, as it's always a huge help for small channels like mine. Also, I will be doing more indie content in the future, so if you like that, just another reason for you to subscribe. Until next time, take care, mates.